how to be extraordinary when we're thinking about influence. Well, we often talk about, I really want to influence, I want to up my influence. What does influence actually mean? Well, influence in and of itself simply means having an effect on something or someone, creating an impact for someone or something. So if we think of a spectrum where we have positive influence here, negative influence here, there's almost in the middle a bit of good, a bit of less good influence. But there's also another kind of continuum of what I would think of as flatline influence, where we don't really have any influence. It's neither good nor bad. It's just there, nothing. Do you even think about your influence? Sometimes it can be a kind of political word of manipulating people. And that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm simply proposing to you that there is a way of approaching the world you work in insofar as wondering what impact and what effect do you have and do you bring to your team, to the organization, to the project. And this works at home. What impact do you have on your friends? What impact do you have on your local groups, sports groups, whatever you do, your children, your husband, your wife, your partner? Thinking about our impact and our influence is a really extraordinary thing to consider. Often we're not very intentional with it. We don't take time to reflect on our impact on those around us. And I want to share a little story from my own life where I realize my impact and my intention are often very different. And it's in the area of body language. Now, if you've watched the videos about introvert, extrovert, you'll realize I'm an extrovert. And being an extrovert means I have access to many words, many gestures. I am a big presence. I'm also 6 foot. You can't see that on the screen. So there is a largeness that comes with me. The intention I have inside is to be loving, to be passionate, to be engaged, to be excited. But the influence I might bring sometimes without awareness of how I carry my body, simply that, how I carry my body, my gestures, my words, that the impact I might have and do sometimes have is it can feel too much. It can feel in excess of. It might be overwhelming, especially for possibly some tired introverted person in my path, or for my children when they just want to talk. So I have had to learn how to change my influence, my impact, and go back a beat, how I carry myself. And this is really important when we're thinking about influence. It's not just about being self-aware, because self-awareness is simply stating the obvious. It's stating the obvious that I'm an extrovert. It's stating the obvious that you might be impatient. It's stating the obvious that you might be a bit underpresent sometimes and look distracted. It's stating the obvious. But what we're doing is being extraordinary by exploring what's the impact of those obvious things we see. What's the impact on the world around you, and what's the influence doing? Is the influence on that positive, negative spectrum? Where is it on the spectrum? And how do you define positive or negative influence? Or is it slightly just negating any influence, just flatlining, a lethargy where you're not contributing positively or negatively? So let's really think about your influence. So my first thing I want to ask you is, if you were to answer this question, what would you say? What influence or what impact do you want to have on your team? If I was to ask your team, what's the impact of your leader? What would you want them to say? So that's what you want them to say. That's your intention. But what does your 360 review say? What does the feedback actually say? because oftentimes they're not the same. And that's okay. That's where being extraordinary comes in. It's leaning into that feedback space where you can see what is exposed is your intention and your impact. It's where you allow that gap to be exposed. I once coached a great guy who was the leader of a team, and his intentions were so great. He really loved people. He really wanted to do well. He was building a great business, but his team were terrified of him. And if they did a 360, they gave all the right answers. It wasn't an honest 360 review. No 360 review should be that perfect. I smelt a rat. There wasn't psychological safety, and they didn't feel they could be honest, because when that leader felt the honesty come close to how his impact, his influence actually was, it was so different from his intention, he disassociated from it and got cross with people and shut it down. But he did it in a very quiet, kind of calm looking way, but it meant case closed. So my challenge to you is, if you want to be extraordinary, lean into that space between your intention and your impact so that you can really navigate well the extraordinary space of being a leader that has a positive impact or influence on a team. There's also something I want to share with you around, aside from being, so we can see that that is about being teachable. Being teachable is a underwritten, underwhelming thought in leadership, but being teachable is really important. It means going into those spaces of the intention impact gap and going, yep, I want to know, in order to increase and engage with your influence. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if you want to be extraordinary with your influence, is laugh a bit. Laugh at things and laugh at yourself, but don't think banter is what I'm talking about. A little freebie for you here. Banter is often repressed conversations coming out in jest. Banter is often a way we can bring out our passive aggression. Let fun be fun and let communication on difficult things be just that. But let's not try and blend the two. So when I'm talking about fun, I'm talking about being able to laugh at yourself, being able to sit back and laugh, not laughing in defense, laughing, yeah, that's it, that's me. You don't have to do it too much. We don't want to undermine your leadership, but being able to laugh at your quirks, knowing that you're secure enough in your leadership to be able to laugh at those sides of yourself. It just means you will be creating an environment around you of psychological safety. But as I say, not too much. I'm not suggesting we're all best friends, self-flagellating ourselves. Let's not do that. Let's think about being able to laugh with our team, to soften and to be able to laugh at ourselves. It goes hand in hand with that teachability. And the third thing with your influence is to have integrity. Now, we often talk about integrity and what does it really mean? So this is how I see it. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And make sure you're saying yes and you're saying no. So for the extrovert, we might have a tendency to overpromise and underdeliver. Don't do that. Stop doing that. Say yes to what you're going to say yes to. And say when you're ideating, say when you're promising. Don't try and blend the two up. So be really clear about what you are saying yes to and what you're saying no to. And for the introvert, you might not say yes or no out loud. It might be going on in your head. So remember to say out loud, yes, let's land that. Let's make that happen. Or say no, that now is not the time. Let's not do that. But let your yes be yes with a yes and let your no be no with a no. And let's see how you can, with these three things, dial up your leadership in the space of influence to become something quite extra to the ordinary.